What up, internet world? It's your boy Jermaine back with another video. Just got back from Europe a couple days ago and thought I would sit down and make a video talking about things that I don't like about Europe and things that I like about Europe from an American's perspective. And let's just jump right into this video. So one thing that, now I don't want to sound like a snobby Californian here, but in California we have a lot of very progressive laws when it comes to just little things like, okay, you go out to a bar, and when you go out to a bar in California or in San Francisco, it's very common that water is free. They usually have like a lot of bars that have a place where like there's a water dispensary and you can just get cups and you can just get water, right? Well, water is like free. Well, in Europe and a lot of places when you go out, water is not free. And we went to this place and we partied quite a bit at this location for about 8 days. And each club that we went to, water was like €5 a bottle. Now that's a lot of money for water. Now at the same place that we stayed, you could go to like a supermarket and for about 50 cents you could get like this, large like bottle of water. Now the bottle of water that they're selling for €5. Because when I went there, the dollar and the euro was about 1 to 1, so €5 is about $5. I was looking at the size, and it's just a small bottle versus for roughly about half of €1 you can get this large bottle at the grocery store. So what a lot of people would do is they would just buy these large bottles from the grocery store and then just hide them in the bush, so they would like leave the club and like go out and drink water, right, to avoid the $5 like water fee. I also noticed this at budget airports, right? This is a huge thing at budget airports. At budget airports, they want you to pay for every single thing. They want to nickel and dime you for like every single thing, right? So what they'll usually do is they'll charge for water at the airport, or you will not find a water dispenser anywhere in the airport. Now in American airports, we don't, we don't have like budget airports. Usually all of our airports are like normal airports. Europe, they have so many budget flights, they got budget airports, and those budget airports, they do things like take water away, and some places even have rules where you can't take food onto a plane after you've paid for it within the airport, just because it's just another way for the budget airlines to make money off of you by selling you something, like when you're on the plane. And stuff like that. They want to nickel and dime you. They're trying to get every penny they can get out of you. Another thing that, once again, I don't want to sound like a snobbish, Californian here, but this is just something I've noticed about Europe. Not as much in the UK, but definitely more so throughout Europe, because I've traveled, over the past 10 years I've been to Europe. Maybe like 15 times or something. I've been to Europe quite a bit, and I've been all around Europe. Massive continent. I love Eastern Europe. It's a lot of fun, but yeah, Western Europe, there's definitely a lot more action going on, especially like places like the UK. I've noticed that people tend to smoke a lot. Like it is, in some European countries, I actually wonder, do they just give the citizens like cigarettes for free? Like the amount of people like that would smoke. I remember going to a couple shows, and I would leave and my throat would hurt the next morning. And I'm not a cigarette smoker. In California, there's very, very progressive like laws to basically almost make people stop smoking cigarettes. I remember a couple years ago, I was hanging out with a friend, and he was buying packs of cigarettes, and they went up on the pricing, and he said that like yesterday they cost like $4.80, and now they cost like $8 or $9 or something like that, like overnight. And I remember when that happened, and then I also kind of start to think about people that I know in San Francisco. I really don't know many people that smoke. Some of the cyclists, they smoke, but I really don't know a lot of people that smoke cigarettes. In some parts of California, they look down on you if you smoke cigarettes, but they don't actually look down on you as much if you're like, smoking cannabis. It's like completely different. And in Europe, it's definitely a cool thing to smoke cigarettes, and this is just one like huge thing. This is one thing I just dislike about Europe, right? The first thing was sort of the nickel and dime you. Like, come on, let me have some free water, yo. I totally get it. You want to charge your water? Okay, cool. I'll pay €5 for your water. Okay, it's cool. But it's another thing when go places and before you get there you're gonna leave and you're gonna just smell like freaking cigarettes. I remember one night we went out to this one place and it was outdoors, and I had like a hoodie on, and I remember the next morning after I took the hoodie off and passed out, went to sleep, I remember smelling the hoodie, and it smelled like literally a cigarette factory. And I was like, wow, like this is like so old school. This reminded me of when I was like 18 and I would sneak into bars like in Memphis in my hometown, and like my homie and I would like sneak into certain bars and stuff like that. And we would leave smelling like cigarette smoke because these were bars that you can smoke inside. Like they had a smoking section and then a non-smoking section. And of course, all the cool people hung out in the smoking section. And usually the non-smoking section wasn't that popping, because back then, like, majority of people I knew smoked cigarettes. I didn't smoke cigarettes, but back then, majority of people I knew did. And now, I mean, you look at it throughout the U.S. and they're just getting more and more strict on cigarette smoking, with like restrictions. You can't smoke 15 feet from the walkway. You can't smoke 15 feet from a window. I would imagine in the future, maybe Europe will pass more progressive laws and there'll be less people smoking. But once again, this is just something like I find really surprising, like coming from America, because the whole stereotype is, Americans are the ones that are, it's just, smoking cigarettes all the time and always overweight. Well, we might beat you on the overweight, but I don't necessarily know if we beat you on the cigarettes, because, man, when I go to some places in Europe, bro, like Germany, it is like so bad. Like even just walking down the street, it's just like the people in front, like you're just getting their cigarette smoking, and it's like, wow, like, bro, how do people live like this? Kind of insane. Coming from someone who lives in California, like literally traveling to Europe is like super simple. And I also hear this over and over, like traveling to Europe is very expensive for Americans, and I would have to say, like, yes and no. If you look at the currency rates, I just happened to be in Europe at one of the times where like the euro was like super low compared to the dollar, and then also I do live in one of the most expensive places in the US. So when you combine those two factors together, I'm going to a place like Italy, and it's really inexpensive because the euro has crashed quite a bit, but then it's also very inexpensive because I'm going to like a local little town or whatever. For example, I remember going to this one supermarket in Italy, and for about 100 euros, which is about $100, we were able to fill up the back seat of a freaking car, with food and water and drinks, and I had a couple bottles of alcohol in there, and we were able to do that for like $100, and lots of fruits and lots of vegetables and stuff like that. Versus in San Francisco, for $100, I could literally walk into the grocery store and come out with one bag. So there is this picture painted that Europe is so much more expensive, and I kind of beg the difference, because going to my favorite falafel shop here in San Francisco and ordering a falafel wrap with french fries now costs about $18. In London, I can get the same equivalent meal in dollars for maybe about $8 to $10. So going out to eat in London is definitely a lot cheaper than going out to eat in San Francisco if you're like looking for street food, looking for cheap food. Now, when you go to restaurants in London, like, yeah, things can get a little bit more expensive, but the thing is, there's so many more restaurants to choose from in London versus, in a place like San Francisco. Also, getting around, like your transportation and stuff. If you go to a place like LA, right? Let's say you live in Texas and you want to go to LA for a week. Well, if you go to LA for a week, you're probably going to have to rent a car for a week. So that's going to add to your expense to go to LA. Now you got to rent a hotel. Maybe that's, $200 a night. And then now you have to rent a car. Maybe that's, with gas, maybe that's about $100 extra a day. So you're looking at $300 a day just on a hotel and car in a place like going to Los Angeles. Okay. Now maybe you spend another $100 on food and doing stuff. So you spend like $400 a day. Well, going to London, you could possibly find a hotel for anywhere for like $100 to $200, right? Equivalent to that $200 hotel in LA. And also, you wouldn't have the expense of renting a car, so you would X out that $100, and maybe you could spend a little bit more on transit. Because if you take the buses and trains, you could spend maybe about $10 a day. But if you hop in Ubers and jump in taxis, maybe you'd spend upwards closer to $100 a day. And then also the money that you would spend going out, would probably be cheaper than what you would spend, going out in LA, because, America is expensive. I'm just gonna tell y'all, like, if you never left the US is very expensive, and also with the pound dropping. When I was over in the UK, it just made everything like so much more cheaper. So there is this whole idea, this whole misconception that Europe is so much more expensive than the US. And one thing you want to look at is them currency rates, because when the euro start to fall, when they get equal, it's very, very cheap to go to Europe. Also, if the euro is like 120 to the dollar, it still might not be bad to go to Europe. Especially, depending on where you're going in Europe, because the thing about Europe is kind of like the US, right? New York, food costs, maybe certain places in New York, food costs more, right? And they use dollars in New York. But if you go down to Alabama, you go to a restaurant like a Taco Bell, maybe the Taco Bell is cheaper in Alabama, but they still use the same dollars, right? So in Europe, it's the same exact way. You're in Paris, and Chipotle may cost you about 13 euros. But if you go to a place like, Barcelona, maybe you can get some equivalent for about 7 euros, So it's kind of the same with the US, when it comes to Europe. Some places are going to be more expensive than others and use the same currency. Just like, in Alabama, you can rent a place for a whole lot cheaper in Alabama than you can San Francisco. Last time I was checking, Birmingham, Alabama, you can get 2-bedroom for about $600 a month. Out here in San Francisco, a 2-bedroom gonna easily cost you about $5,000 a month. So, just to throw that out there, a couple of things I just, don't like about Europe, but a couple of things I do like about Europe. Bro, it's very, very easy to travel. People are usually friendly. They got the public transit in their freaking city centers on lock, y'all. Like, they do a really good job of having like lots of parks. They do an amazing job of having like bike infrastructure in a lot of European cities. Mainly Copenhagen and Amsterdam are the two cities that I've seen bike infrastructure just bananas, like just bikes everywhere. People ride bikes even in the snow, like in the rain, like it's amazing. Also, I love the fact in Europe they have all these like amazing like walking centers that just doesn't exactly exist in America, just because how our cities are built in the US. They're just built differently, versus Europe. They're just built older. Back in the day, our cities in the US are built more for the car, and people just sit on the freeway and spend their life driving all the time. But in Europe, they spend their life, going to the coffee shop, taking the tram, going to the park, going to the beach, taking a holiday, But anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching. And peace out, yo.